The Ducks make some more moves right before the deadline. We'll go through all of them, and we'll go over some moves around the NHL on this episode of Locked On Anaheim Ducks.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jason JD Hernandez. I've been covering hockey for over a decade, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets for any winning $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Well, the trade deadline has come and gone, and the Ducks did make some more moves. One off the waiver wire, by the way. We'll talk about that one in a second. But first, let's go through the trades that the Ducks made right at the deadline. And we're going to go in reverse order here. And we're going to start with a trade that the Ducks made with the Colorado Avalanche. This trade was made just under the wire, where the Ducks traded a 5th round pick for utility man Ben Meyers from the Colorado Avalanche. Now, I know what some Ducks fans are saying. Who's Ben Meyers? Well, okay. Those of you that have not followed AHL, I can tell you exactly what you're getting in Ben Meyers. Ben Meyers has spent a lot of time on the 4th line with the Avalanche, but he's also spent a lot of time with the Colorado Eagles as well. The Colorado Eagles. Now, who was the coach for the Colorado Eagles last year? Oh, that's right, Greg Cronin. So there's already a bit of a relationship there. Ben Meyers, last season with the Colorado Eagles, was, when he was around, one of the better players, even though he was never on the top line. In fact, when he was with the Eagles, he was generally on the 2nd line, sometimes the 3rd line, because there were times last year where Ben Meyers struggled. But, he's a pretty heady forward and someone that has a little bit of grit, a little bit of toughness. Someone that Greg Cronin likes. You always like having those kind of players that like getting into the dirty areas. Someone that can take some of the edge off your other players. For the Ducks, he would generally fit in that 3rd or 4th line role. Can be a bit of a bruiser, but does have a bit of skill on him. And this is just from watching him with Colorado, even though he has a ton of skill. He tends to be somewhat of a pest, but he's still a very good player. I mean, last season, 24 points in 30 games with the Eagles. This season, in 32 games, 25 points. So he's about averaging close to a point a game. Last season, during the playoffs against the Coachella Valley Firebirds. Now, this was kind of interesting because Ben Meyers was starting to pick it up a lot last season. Especially he was on the playoffs with the Colorado Avalanche. Did have a couple of games with the Colorado Eagles. Thank God it was only 2 games he was there for, because I think if Ben Meyers was around that entire series against the Firebirds, they might have won that 1st round. No, I'm actually going to say this. They probably would have won that 1st round. I remember going back to last season, there was a lot of questionable roster decisions between the Avs and the Eagles. And I know the Avs were trying to go for it. I know they wanted to keep some guys around just in case, but that was a huge detriment to their Calder Cup run. And they had a legit shot of making it to the Calder, like at least the Western Conference Final. They had a legit chance. But as it was, he only played a couple of games. In those couple of games, he was just an absolute pest against the Firebirds. Just a pest. He was very good. So again, Ben Meyers being traded for a 5th round pick. I don't mind the trade. I mean, it's a 5th round pick. The Ducks get a depth player. Look, the Ducks are pretty short in general on forwards. They needed someone to round out their roster. So picking up Ben Meyers, a fine choice, an excellent choice. So that was the last trade that took place Friday, right under the gun. So just to kind of refresh all the trades. So Ben Meyers for a 5th round pick. Jan Mysak for Jacob Perreault. That's a fair deal. The Ducks' big trade, giving away Sam Carrick and Adam Henrique, half retained to the Oilers, essentially getting back a first, a conditional fifth. Yeah, that one's fine. That's a good trade. Then last Friday, Ilya Lyubushkin, half retained to Carolina, and in a 3-team deal, they got a third-round pick from the Maple Leafs, which I'm okay with. I mean, they traded a fourth for Lyubushkin. They got a third back for Lyubushkin. Yeah, fair deal. Like it a lot. And going all the way back to January, right after he came back, I still think the biggest trade, even though this technically does not count as a, trade deadline type deal, still I think the biggest deal was Cutter Gauthier for Jamie Drysdale. And a second, Cutter Gauthier is tearing it up in college right now. Gauthier is immediately one of the best prospects in the Ducks system right now, and someone that is going to help them long term. Again, long term. The Ducks are not going to make the playoffs this season. Sorry to burst your bubble, those of you that are still holding out hope, but no, they're not going to make the playoffs this season. They might not even make the playoffs next season. But it's got to start somewhere. And those prospects are just building and building and building until eventually you can start to build around some of those young stars if they remain healthy. And also keep in mind that the salary cap does go up next season and it goes up the following season. So the Ducks can actually go after someone after this year once that half salary retained, once those contracts go off the books. Then the Ducks can really go after a big name free agent. I mean, no offense to Radko Gudas, not a big name free agent signing, but still a decent signing. I still think the best signing for the Ducks recently has been Frank Vatrano, who the Ducks are keeping, by the way. Frank Vatrano did not get traded on the deadline. He is going to remain an Anaheim Duck at least for this season. Maybe he could build up that stock for next season. Maybe he'll get a first-round pick in next season, assuming that the Ducks do not make the playoffs next year. I'm sorry to make that assumption, but let's call a spade here. The Ducks right now boast the third worst record in the league. None of the other teams up top are really free falling at the moment, except for maybe the Los Angeles Kings, who did not make a deal. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But who are the Ducks going to overtake in the Western Conference next season? It's going to take a couple of years. Sorry to be honest, but at least 2 years. So not 2025, but 2026 NHL playoffs. I'm not going to say count on it. I'm not going to say book it, but I would say the odds of the Ducks making the playoffs in 2026 are much, much greater. 2025, as of right now, I give it a 10% chance, but that depends on signings. That depends on health, but mostly signings. That's going to be a big, big summer for the Ducks if they can get a home run signing. All right, we're going to head to the first intermission right now. I will talk briefly about who the Ducks did pick up off of waivers. We will get to that on the other side. Now a brief message from Factor. That is right, we're going to talk about Factor meals. And eating better is easy with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian approved, and ready to go in just a couple of minutes. And you have plenty of options to choose from, including Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. And there's also 60 add-ons to help you stay fueled up and feeling good all day long. And Factor is the perfect solution if you're looking for fast, premium options with no cooking required. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 and use code LockedOnNHL50 to get half off. That's code LockedOnNHL50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 to get half off. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, or TLOPN. Once again, you're locked in with Jason JD Hernandez, going over some trades, but we have one more thing we have to talk about, and the Ducks did make another move of sorts. This wasn't trade involved. This was waivers involved. The Ducks picked up off of waivers from the Toronto Maple Leafs, William Lagesson. This is kind of a steal for the Ducks. Look, you have a good depth player. He's a fine left-handed defenseman, although he has played both sides this season. He has spent much of his time with the Toronto Marlies this season and had a long stint with the Chicago Wolves last season, and that's where I remember him from. I remember him from the Chicago Wolves last season and the Bakersfield Condors the year before. And watching both those seasons, yeah, he played both sides easily, even though he's a lefty defenseman. He's been on the right side a ton of times this season. In fact, with the Maple Leafs, when he was on, he would play on the right side time and time again. So he can play both sides on defense. He could easily round out that third pairing for the Anaheim Ducks. I mean, the Ducks do have quite a few defensemen on their roster. However, what this also does is this also means that there could be other guys moving back down to San Diego. Lagesson, I would expect to stay up with Anaheim. That possibly means that Olen Zellweger might go back down to the San Diego Gulls because you have Cam Fowler. He's not going anywhere. Radko Gudas not going anywhere. Jackson Lacombe not going anywhere. Pavel Mintyukov, no way he's leaving. Vakanainen, he's fine. So that leaves one other spot for Lidstrom, Zellweger, and Lagesson. And I think they're probably going to keep Lagesson up because Zell's is waivers exempt. Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's what that could mean. Or the Ducks just might keep going 11-7 and keep Olen Zellweger up with the Anaheim Ducks, which they should do because Zell's is too good for the American Hockey League. He's much better suited for the NHL game. He's been very good with the Ducks. I see no reason why the Ducks should even think about sending him down. But now the Ducks have kind of a log jam on defense. I think this will only be for the rest of the season. I mean, there's only not even 24 games left. And Lagesson is a free agent after this season. So what the Ducks do with their defense is going to be very interesting the last 20 games. But also, Wild Bill, I think, is going to remain up with the NHL, to be honest. He's earned his keep in the NHL. He's earned his spot. So I would say keep him up with the Ducks. Just roll 11-7. Just do it. Also, Wild Bill, as they call him, has never scored an NHL goal. He's 0-for. Can you imagine Wild Bill Lagesson spending so many years in the minors, spending all that time going from team to team, all in Canada. He spent some time with the Edmonton Oilers, some time with the Montreal Canadiens, some time with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Has not scored an NHL goal in 90 games. Wouldn't it be funny if this was... I'm kidding, of course. But no, let's actually think this. What if he actually finally scores his first NHL goal as a member of the Anaheim Ducks? How... I'm not going to say hilarious. How great would that be? That'd be cool. So once again, that was the waiver wire pickup that the Anaheim Ducks made. And we'll see what they do with their rosters the last 20 games. I think the word I'm looking for here is fascinating. It's going to be fascinating to see what the Ducks do with their rosters. If I were to make an assumption, if I was to assume, then I would say, yeah, we're going to see Lagesson. He's probably going to not play right away because he just got called off waivers. But I would think his first game would probably be next week. Because right now you still have Zell's. Zell's should be a top line or second pairing guy. So until he arrives, we'll see what the Ducks do. All right. I mentioned that I was going to look at some of the other trades around the league, so I think we'll do just that. Let's look at some of the other trades that have been made across the league, and there was a lot of trades going down. One of the biggest ones took place right under the dot, and this had to do with the San Jose Sharks. The Sharks made a trade with the Vegas Golden Knights for Tomas Hertl. Oh dear God. The Vegas Golden Knights are doing it again. They are circumventing the cap. I don't know how they continue to do this year after year, utilizing that loophole that they can do whatever they want as far as LTIR. Oh, by the way, it was also announced earlier today that Mark Stone had a lacerated spleen and there is no timetable for his return. Right. Looking online, there was a bunch of internet sleuths that said, what is the approximate healing time for that kind of injury, for a spleen injury? And many internet sleuths said 3 to 12 weeks. The NHL playoffs start in 6 weeks. That's in that 3 to 12 week range. So there's no timetable for the return of Mark Stone. Yeah, right. We all know what's going to happen. I mean, I say this partially joking, but we all know what's going to happen. Mark Stone is going to reappear on the Vegas Golden Knights roster on Game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, assuming they make it, of course, because right now they are hanging on to a wild card spot, so they have to make it first. But if they make it, they're going to have, once again, one of the best and strongest lineups in the entire National Hockey League. Everybody's going to get healthy, and the Vegas Golden Knights are somehow going to make it all the way to the Cup final again, because that's just how these things work, folks. That's how they always work. So that was kind of one of the big, I guess, stunning trades, is the Sharks got David Edstrom from the AHL. They got a first from the Vegas Golden Knights because, of course, Vegas got a couple of thirds and Tomas Hertl with some salary retained. Of course, there was salary retained. That's how Vegas made that work. Great! All right, we're going to head to the second intermission right now while I compose myself from that ridiculous trade. I'll talk about the rest of the trades on the other side. Now a brief word from Indeed, and no matter how the trade deadline went, anytime you take the ice, you've got a shot at greatness. Give your team the best shot at winning by recruiting more MVPs with Indeed. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find candidates with the right skills, you just need one powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all with Instant Match. Yeah, Instant Match. As soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of great candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description. Just like that, it is super easy. So start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer valid through March 31st. Once again, Indeed.com/lockedon to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, you're locked in with Jason JD Hernandez, and this is episode number 842 of Locked On Anaheim Ducks. Thanks for the few of you that have stuck around for as long as you have through 100, 200, insert very high number here. I know there's at least a couple of you that still text me once in a while that still listen in. Yeah, because I got one earlier. So thank you for still listening in and tuning in. All right. I want to talk about some of the other trades that went down before we wrap up. There is a Ducks game tonight. They are taking away the Dallas Stars. Let's see how that goes, folks. Other notable trades. So I'm going to go with the notable trades here. And I'm going to start with some of the trades that took place yesterday because there was some pretty heady trades. Actually, I'm going to go back to Wednesday because the Kraken made a trade. The New York Rangers got Alexander Wenberg from the Seattle Kraken for a second and a conditional fourth. That's a big deal for the Rangers. They missed out on Adam Henrique, so they get another depth forward in Alex Wenberg, who's a very good player, has been very good with the Kraken this season. A great middle six guy, can fit right into the Rangers offense. So a good move by the Rangers. Half salary retained. The Kraken, they're kind of selling a little bit because they're a bit out of the playoffs. So just got to keep that in mind. How about the trade with, this was a pretty good trade. Noah Hanifin. The Noah Hanifin trade leaving the Calgary Flames. Yeah, that was kind of a big trade to make. And that was a 3-team deal with the Flyers and the Vegas Golden Knights. Somehow Vegas is doing this again, but Noah Hannafin is a Vegas Golden Knight. Half salary retained from the Flyers and half salary retained from the Calgary Flames. I don't know how they keep getting away with this, but they do. Yeah, a great top 6 guy for Vegas to get. Another pretty decent trade. I would say a pretty decent trade, a solid trade here. Has to do with, oh boy, I can't believe I'm saying this, the Sharks and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay got Anthony Duclair from the Sharks for Jack Thompson from the AHL and a 3rd-round pick. Not a bad move for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're trying to get back into some playoff relevance. One of the biggest trades from yesterday, the Carolina Hurricanes and the Pittsburgh Penguins. This was a big trade. The Carolina Hurricanes got Jake Gensel from the Pittsburgh Penguins and the services of Ty Smith for Michael Bunting, a bunch of prospects, a 2nd and a 5th. On paper, it looks like Pittsburgh got fleeced on this one, but some of these, Cruz Lucius is a pretty solid prospect, so that could be something for Pittsburgh down the line, but I think Carolina is the big winner on this one. Jake Gensel could immediately bolster that Carolina offense. Carolina is one of those teams that could very easily sneak into the Stanley Cup final. They could. So big deal right there. Also a pretty big deal. Carolina also got Evgeny Kuznetsov with half salary retained from the Washington Capitals. Now, Kuz had just gotten sent down to the Hershey Bears. And now Kuznetsov goes to the Carolina Hurricanes. Who knows how that is going to work out? Carolina immediately is getting that much stronger. How about this trade that took place right under the gun? Kyle Oposo going from the Buffalo Sabres to the Florida Panthers. As of right now, believe it or not, the Florida Panthers are the Stanley Cup favorite. That is according to FanDuel, because I actually had to look this up before we started. On FanDuel, on the futures, the Florida Panthers are the odds favorite to win the Stanley Cup this year. I wouldn't believe it if I didn't see it, but there it is. Florida Panthers. Best odds. I don't know about that. Florida did get that much better, but I don't know if they're Cup favorites. I don't even know if they're favorites in the East, to be honest. But they did get that much stronger, so I'll give them credit. Solid trade. Sabres gave up Kale Solin and a conditional 7th. Solid trade for the Florida Panthers there. So those are some of the big trades. A couple more big trades I got to talk about before we wrap up. And I'm going to go with the bigger trades here. Nashville got Jason Zucker from the Arizona Coyotes for a 6th. Oh, I honestly thought that Arizona could get a 4th or a 5th out of Jason Zucker, but to get a 6th, and Dallas is 6th too, so that's a late 6th round pick. I don't know about that one. I think the Coyotes got a little bit fleeced on that one. Good depth guy for the Nashville Predators, who are clinging to a wild card spot. The Winnipeg Jets, they got Tyler Toffoli from the New Jersey Devils for a 3rd and a 2nd. Yeah, solid move by Winnipeg. The Winnipeg Jets, they're for real. They might be for real. And kind of an understated trade here. Pat Maroon, yes, that Pat Maroon, going to the Boston Bruins for a prospect and a 6th. Boston did good there. So the stronger teams get stronger. Oh boy. I don't know who's going to be the favorite now. I don't know. Oh yeah, the Sharks also traded goalies with the Devils. Kaapo Kähkönen for Vitek Vanecek. That's kind of a nothing deal because I don't think either team's going to make the playoffs this year. The Sharks aren't, the Devils aren't. Yeah. So I'll ask you, who do you think won the trade deadline out of the entire... Well, 2 questions. And you could answer on the bottom. I'll get around to the comments on Saturday. But I will ask you, and you could answer this. Who won the trade deadline in the National Hockey League? Who won it? Did Florida win it? Did Vegas win it? Did, I don't know, insert team here win it? Did Carolina win? And also, what would you grade the Ducks trade deadline? Would you give it a solid A? I give it an A minus. I mean, it's a good trade deadline for the Ducks. They got a first. Anytime you get a first, I consider that a win for the Ducks. So, how would you grade the Ducks trade deadline for this year? All right. I will leave you with that. Don't forget Ducks and Stars tonight. Hope you enjoy the game. In the meantime, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Don't forget this podcast is free and available across all platforms, including Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, ad-free on Amazon. We're also on YouTube, so hit that subscribe button if you want to check out the latest episodes. You could follow me on X at StimpyJD, and the show's X is at LO_Ducks. You could email me at lockedonanaheimducks@gmail.com, and I think I'm going to open up the mailbag again, probably next week. I'll open the mailbag up again. And once again, thank you all for your continued support. It is so, so greatly appreciated. And you know what, folks? There may or may not be an extra episode this weekend. I mean, the Ducks do play a game tonight. They also play a game on Sunday. So there may or may not be an extra episode for y'all. So yeah, make sure you're subscribed and see if we do get one this weekend. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. For Locked On Anaheim Ducks, I'm Jason J.D. Hernandez saying have a great weekend, folks. Please remember to be safe out there, be kind to one another, and Ducks fly together.